Vice Chair McGee, you are now live.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the July meeting of the Public Art and Cultural Commission. I'm Vice Chair Allie McGee. The Public Art and Cultural Commission, originally called the Public Art Board, was established by Asheville City Council in 2000. This 9-member commission serves as an advisory board to the city on matters concerning art in public spaces. The commission is responsible for promoting public art in the city, overseeing the city's public art projects, and ensuring the art displays in public buildings and public spaces in the city of Asheville are properly maintained. Apologies for the noise here. All committee members and staff are participating virtually, and we are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website and on the city's YouTube page. To participate by phone, dial 855-925-2801. Meeting code 9182. You can also send public comments to Public Art and Cultural Commission at publicinput.com. I will now go through and introduce all the committee members who are participating virtually. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Shirley Whitesides.
Hello.
Pete Perez.
Hello.
Pat Kappas.
Hello.
And then Joanna Haggerty is not here today. And we also have Andrew Fletcher, immediate past vice chair.
Quick hello.
And Katie Cordell, immediate past chair.
Hello.
And now I will move into the administrative items. The first is the approval of the May meeting minutes. If everyone has had a chance to look at those, I would love to get a motion to have those minutes approved.
I'll move.
And second?
I'll second.
Great. Minutes are approved for May. And now I will turn it over, it looks like, to Steph Dahl to share a little bit about vacancies and appointments to the committee.
Okay, I am letting you all know that by the time October runs around, you will have 4 vacancies. You have 2 vacancies right now, and you can do a lot of outreach to your community and let them know that these spaces will be available. However, the sidebar on this is later in your agenda, we will be having a discussion where we talk about who we might want in those seats and whether or not, if you consider changing your ordinance, we should have specifically assigned seats for those individuals from certain organizations. Regardless, there will be at least 1 seat that will be in an at-large seat, and we need to get some applications in. The deadline is August 27th, and council will make those appointments in October. Does anybody have any questions about the vacancies? And right now, let me just say that our 2 current vacancies are from Reggie Tidwell and Marcia Almodovar. And the upcoming vacancies are from your former chair and vice chair, Katie Cornell and Andrew Fletcher.
And Steph, we had chatted about possibly reviewing past applications. Are we to talk about that later in the meeting today?
We can. We thought we would allow you all to take a look again at the applications that came in from the last vacancies. That's a great idea, Allie.
Okay, so moving on from that to our next item, which is into old business, which is related to this, which is rethinking the Public Art and Cultural Commission. Discussion we can have with staff and with ourselves about whether we want to explore an ordinance that includes permanent seats, as Steph was saying, for some partner institutions, what those institutions might even be. And if we want to do that, whether we want to change that ordinance before the new council appointments in October. As well as looking at an ordinance change potentially to include an expanded purview of advice on outdoor special events. There's a lot of pieces to this, and I also was not in the May meeting when we first talked about this, so would love general thoughts on all of these things. Let's start with number 1, permanent seats for partner institutions.
And this is Steph. Maybe Katie wants to provide an overview of how that came about and then talk about the 3 seats we're now considering, which would be Explore Asheville or BCTDA, UNCA, and Arts AVL.
Yeah, it came about because, these partner institutions are heavily involved in most of these public art projects, and we felt it would be make it easier for the public art program if they were at the table at the commission as part of these discussions. Was that what you're looking for, Steph, or did you want more?
I think that makes sense. And I'll just add that there are several boards and commissions that the city has where we have specific seats. For example, on the Downtown Commission, there is a seat for the Downtown Association. And we also sometimes have boards and commissions do seats that have outside appointments. So on the Riverfront Commission, we have appointments from SIBO, the Chamber of Commerce, the town of Woodfin, and they're actually amending their ordinance right now to include the town of Black Mountain. So the idea here is to match the strategy with the goal. And as Katie Cornell was getting at there, the goal here is to foster better connections between the Public Art and Cultural Commission and the folks in the community that you want to be partnering with. And so these are the 3 organizations that we're on the table right now as more of anchor institutions that have wide reaches as opposed to smaller not-for-profits. I can report that I spoke with the Buncombe County TDA Explore Asheville. They're very amenable to this. We've reached out to UNCA. They haven't gotten back to us, but we can manage that as well. And Katie and Allie, you can speak on behalf of Arts AVL.
And Pete.
And Pete, oh my gosh, board member, yes.
We already have a lot of representation from Arts AVL. I think the Arts AVL would be happy to do this. Yeah, and it also sounds like, just a great way to leverage community networking and links. Yes, Andrew.
Yeah, that was, I know after we chatted in our pre-meeting about this, and I guess that was my question, is that I just want to make sure that we've got organizational buy-in from our partners before we go ahead and give them a seat, and that, they're going to have some commitment to it. The one question I'd have is with UNCA, and I'm a senior there, love UNCA, but perhaps do we want to be a little broader in our saying an arts educational institution, and that may, obviously UNCA would be one of a handful that would qualify as that. But that would be my one question I'd throw to the group.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Andrew. And I am wondering if just making even a short list of other institutions that would need to be on there, we'd probably keep it to, we got private and public universities. And yeah, Pat.
I was thinking the same exact thing about UNCA. Just wanted to have a better understanding of why we would consider that institution over other, entities in town. And also, would they be voting members? And is there a drawback to having like a higher number of people that are, committed seats versus kind of at-large positions?
Yeah, I see that Pete has his hand raised too. And I'll offer a little bit of context for UNCA was because we have done a lot of work with the STEAM studio in particular in the past with fabrication of some of the things in the River Arts District. So there is the STEAM studio is kind of one of the main draws there. Pete? I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. I had the same question as Pat and Andrew regarding why UNCA. The STEAM studios, I could understand. The other two seem very clear to me. it seems to me that our success or failure is very much tied into at least those first two institutions, TDA and Arts AVL, and being able to formalize that takes an approach to where rather than taking people from the community in general, which may or may not have leverage in these situations, and concentrating on the partners that we need to really continue to grow and do a good job, I think makes a lot of sense.
I'll provide some background on the UNCA conversation over the past year or so. My understanding is that, UNCA, while they don't have a large student body, they do have a bench of potential interns and students that could work on projects that would support the work that the Public Art and Cultural Commission is doing, reviewing best practices, looking at precedent images and projects. They're also, as an institution, very interested in doing student engagement. And so as we move forward with different community processes, they could also provide an extension of the Public Art and Cultural Commissions in the city or other partners' ability to be on the street or on the ground. So that was one of the thoughts about there. The third piece of it, I think, is that again, while they're not a very large institution, they do provide a pipeline of people who eventually become artists in our community and or arts administrators. So that could be a way to heighten the presence of public art in people's minds as they enter their workforce.
I wonder about broadening it, and we could broaden it all the way out to say people who are working in Buncombe County schools or Asheville City schools potentially as our educators, and then also thinking about Warren Wilson too, although it's technically not. I don't even know if Warren Wilson is in the city limits technically. I don't know how that would work. Yeah, so it's an interesting conversation.
I think the part about giving some arms and legs and help makes a lot of sense, because we've been really restricted by staff and how much time each of the board members has to be able to do it. And if we're going to execute, being able to have some people in the pipeline is something I hadn't thought about, but makes a lot of sense.
Well, I wonder, could we could also encourage those people to join, whether it's an official seat from this organization, right? That wouldn't, if it wasn't an official, like we're always going to have a UNCA person posted to the commission, like they would still be allowed to be part of the commission, right?
You mean on top of, in addition to the appointed seat, or just if there were not an appointed
If there
seat?
was not an appointed seat.
Yeah. So,
I think the formal partnership would encourage someone to always be a representative, though. I mean, right now we don't have anybody from UNCA, and having a more formalized partnership, I think, would help. I agree. It doesn't have to be just UNCA, AB Tech. There's other institutions, but there is a lot of precedent for working with UNCA.
And, it may be that every appointment cycle, they've got the best candidate because of all the reasons that go along with the advantages of UNCA as an applicant. So it may be that, the de facto, it would work out to be them every time. But I am thinking about, council actually making the appointments and being able to offer some leeway there for, strong candidates from other arts institutions as other arts institutions grow, hopefully, and invest, and making it a desirable thing that that they could go for. So while I'm really comfortable with being UNCA, I think it's a worthy question. Do we specify the institution, or do we say arts arts education institution, and draw a box around that? And I'll be comfortable really with either result, but I think it's a worthy question.
yeah, I agree with that. And I wonder just about the logistics of having a space and how specific we have to get for that seat if we're reserving it.
That is up to you. As I mentioned, it could just be an outreach type of effort. We do have an example in the Riverfront Commission where one seat is reserved for a design professional. So you could have one seat that's reserved for an arts educator or arts administrator.
The one, I'm not even going to say drawback, but if it were specifically for UNC Asheville and they had agreed to it, then there would be kind of something on their end to uphold in terms of filling it. Whereas if we left it open to an arts educator institute, right, then there's going to put more on us potentially to go find and fill that seat. So just in terms of just wanting the committee to be as robust as possible, it might make sense to limit it and just see how that goes. But I'm also very open to either. Yeah, Katie.
That's a really good point, Allie. Steph, on the other commissions, when they have a seat, an organization has a seat on another commission, is there some kind of formal agreement between the city and that institution that, you know, they provide other services other than just the seat?
No, there's sometimes the ordinance is written so that it encourages other organizations to participate in the development of resources. That can mean even some funding, but generally there's no agreement, and the appointments are made at the leisure, the pleasure, if you want to put it, of the appointing boards of those organizations, or they delegate it, and the city normally does not get very involved with that.
What's our decision timeline on this? Obviously, it has to go into the ordinance. Is this something that, you know, not having yet heard from UNCA, I'm a little uncomfortable about, you know, moving forward without some assent from them. So what's our time? Do we have to make this determination now, or before we, you know, contemplate a new ordinance, or do we have a little bit to try to figure this out?
Well, staff would outline that you have a milestone coming up, which is in October, council is ready to appoint to these 4 new positions. So your deadline is really to either allow council to appoint or to try to change the ordinance before then, or to ask council to hold those appointments until the following cycle. So it takes a while to change the ordinance. You need to go to the Boards and Commissions Committee of City Council and inform them, answer any of the questions that they might have, and then they would make a recommendation to send that to City Council. So you're talking about either, you know, that's a 2-month period right there. You would need to have a new ordinance written up and ready to go pretty early in the first couple of weeks of August to be able to still meet council's appointment deadlines in October. The other way, again, you know, you could just have some appointments done in October, let that ride, and work to change the ordinance on a time frame that works for you all.
Allie here. I am it does seem like we are, and maybe we should take a vote on this or have a show of hands or something around at least 2 of the seats being held for Arts AVL, for Explore Asheville. And then potentially, I saw in the agenda, right, we could potentially set a subcommittee meeting to edit the ordinance. It sounds like if people are on board, we'll be editing the ordinance anyway in the next couple of weeks for those. And at that point, I would assume maybe that UNC Asheville would have answered. And if they haven't, maybe then we figure that out when we come to it. Shirley.
I think it would be good if we had someone from higher education and K-12, especially if you're taking the students around to see the mural or the public arts, they will have some idea of what's going on, and it will give, it's a way to integrate the education in with the public arts so people will be more informed, and even the parents would want to come more to tour the public art.
Yeah, that's a great point as well.
I'd like to think that we can have that advantage through our normal outreach and through the at-large seats. I'm wondering a little bit about how we could make these seats are like institutional partnerships, really. And without a corresponding institution, it's hard to guarantee that we're going to be able to fill that slot. And so, while I'm totally on board with your desire, Shirley, I'm not sure that there without a real institutional partner on the other side that we'd be able to get that reliably filled and create the types of relationships from that we'd like to have.
Yeah, I think the other consideration I'd have just listening to this conversation is, I think if we do this right, we're looking at more. We're looking then more than just a seat on this committee. We're looking for kind of a strategic commitment to be able to get involved with our success. I know we have that at RCABL. Put a lot of money on the fact that TDA is going to be on board and involved in that. So I think how we express that, if that's UNC or somebody else, is to be able to really make sure that they understand we're looking for a commitment to our success without necessarily defining that. That's a much different thing than having a seat on a board and just sending somebody. The other thing I thought about is it may be an option, because I agree with Andrew, I wouldn't want to go unless we know that they have that interest and commitment. But assuming that they do, another way of doing it is just to say that educational component is subject to review every X amount of time and give ourselves a backdoor to review it without making it permanent. Because the other two institutions are the only ones in town covering the arts and covering tourist development.
Is that something that's pretty easy to do, staff, though, so we wouldn't have necessarily, or do we have to kind of review and revise the ordinance and take it in front of through the whole process each time? Or can we save ourselves a little bit?
Can you, just explain again what you'd want to do? I think you have to redo the ordinance, but just tell me again what it is that you were suggesting.
Pete, do you want to explain? Yeah.
Yeah, what I was talking about, Stephanie, is if we could just outright approve Arts AVL and the TDA, because those are permanent organizations in the city without competition, and have UNCA, if they say that they want to be a part of this and be a strategic partner, that we have them as our educational designee, but that's subject to review depending on what's happening in a community every X amount of time. I mean, pick the number of years that you think is valuable, but it keeps us from having to be able to see the future right now, gives us a partner that's been proven that we know has done work with us without locking ourselves in.
So as staff, I would recommend that you state really clearly in your ordinance what you want, right? So if you want to have an educational appointee, then you make it the educational appointee and you don't designate it as UNCA. You can get someone from UNCA to fill that seat the first 3-year term. That's so we wouldn't supersede anything that council already has as a board and commission rules, and pretty much once somebody's in that seat, they get to serve a 3-year term. So we wouldn't really review it annually, right? But there's I guess what I'm trying to tell you, long story short, there's ways to put things in your bylaws that require you to review things, like say every 3 years of who that educational partner is, but we couldn't remove someone at 1 year.
And 3 years to me would be plenty. I mean, I wouldn't look for anything short term. I mean, if we thought we could depend on them, and so far we've been very much able to depend on them for a lot of different reasons. I think looking at evaluation after full first term would give us plenty of room, would at least be my opinion.
Getting to Ally's point about putting a subcommittee together, I think staff could recommend that you get that subcommittee together and write the ordinance with a clause off to the side that says that seat is for an educational partner. Write it up as is with UNCA. So you have those kind of alternate languages, and then have that discussion with UNCA while you're moving forward in the process to get it reviewed. You don't want to go to the boards and commissions committee without knowing exactly who you're asking for. That's the big piece.
Yep.
But you do have a little bit of time before that would happen. So maybe we could kind of get into the nitty-gritty details at a subcommittee meeting about it. I think I'm understanding where you're wanting to go, and that you're being cautious in safeguarding the integrity of the Public Art and Cultural Commission. And we just need to have that conversation with UNCA to clarify some things.
Yeah, and that's just one opinion. I don't know if anybody else agrees or disagrees with that. It's just something to think about.
Might also help, because we had some other ideas here. Andrew talked about operationalizing Shirley's idea. We might be able to put that into play with this as well, right? So that you can maybe have that seat be for an educational partner, go out after UNCA first, but everybody knows that, you also want to try to do outreach for a K through 12 partner eventually, or just have someone on the commission that speaks to that and can start building that relationship, and maybe longer term there'll be a real assigned seat.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with the way that sounds. And I think I am interested, obviously, still to hear what UNCA says. And then that sounds like it could be a good way to go. What I'm hearing is that having an arts education seat of some kind is something that people would like. And the other two seem totally good to go. And there's maybe more thought around this one particularly. So we could, I think doing the subcommittee meeting would be the best next step, and then hashing it out from there with the knowledge that everyone is on board with the idea.
Yeah, I'm hearing broad agreement that we want to have these partners involved, and I feel like a lot of clarity would here be just if if we knew that relationship with UNCA was firm. And so I suggest that we kick this to subcommittee, new ordinance with informed by this discussion, and with hopefully some clarity from UNCA, and we kick it to subcommittee to firm this up and bring it back to the full commission for a vote.
I agree.
And I'm happy to be on that subcommittee. It's part of my outgoing torch passing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to volunteer for that service. And I realize with timing, we do want to get this done in time for the fall appointment cycle. It may require a special meeting called. So I'd just like to note that it's sort of I'm down.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good next step. And then in terms of just, do we need to make kind of a motion for that? Do we need to assess all the interest at this point? Do we need to pick a date? What's our next step for all of that?
Go ahead.
I'd suggest if we had some other volunteers for ordinance, so that we could name a subcommittee in a motion. Then we could make a motion referring this matter to a subcommittee.
All right. other interested? I see Pat, I see Katie. I am interested. Andrew. Pete potentially nodding.
So just an
Shirley.
FYI, this looks more like a special meeting of you all than it does a subcommittee.
Hey,
So-
and
That's
that's
true.
cool too.
That's true.
If that's everybody's interested, then that's great.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's right, Steph. I think just sleep on this a little bit, come back, take another pass at it and see if we can wrestle it down.
Right, if that many people are interested.
Yep.
What staff will do is send out a doodle poll, and to see who can attend, we'll need at least 3 people for a subcommittee, and then if it's a special meeting, it will be anything over that will be a quorum, and we'll call it a special meeting and advertise it. So we'll look to see in that first week of August, no later than the first week of August is what I'd say, for us to get going with that. And in appreciation of everything that the chair and vice chair previously had done for the ordinance. So we do have copy to start with, and Katie's the expert on that piece. Okay.
So in that case, I think no motion required. We just intend to have a special meeting to get this wrapped up. All right.
Yes, the last thing I will say on this is that I did send a note out to the Department of Community and Recreation and Entertainment Facilities to let John Philman and Chris Corral know that this commission was interested in potentially expanding the purview to include special events. So they are talking about that. And when we meet, we can explore that and maybe have one of their staff people there if appropriate. Okay.
All right, so we will move on to the next item, which is the Pack Square Plaza Visioning Plan. And Steph, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. I am going to talk. Can you all see this purpose of the plan? I think you can, right?
Yes, yes.
Great. Well, before we get into the purpose of the plan, I am going to read to you from the upcoming Pack Square Plaza vision plan, the actual vision that is on, the 3rd page of the plan. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what's in it. We're hoping that we can release that plan tomorrow. We are, of course, doing some last-minute edits to the plan. If it's not out tomorrow, it'll be out on Monday. So, for the past 2 centuries, every generation in Asheville's history has had a role in shaping or reshaping Pack Square. This generation is no different. The civil and social unrest following the unjust murders of several Black Americans in 2020, including George Floyd, brought the future of the Vance Monument and Pack Square Plaza to an inflection point. The present generation of Ashevilleans took a bold step forward and decided to remove the monument, but more importantly, felt it was time to come up with a new vision for Pack Square Plaza that is more inclusive and equitable. The vision for Pack Square Plaza is to ensure its position as an incredibly inclusive and welcoming destination for locals and visitors alike by reshaping the space so it is more usable and accessible, offers new experiences and amenities for all people, reimagines how we share histories and address past harms, and establishes a strong physical and cultural connection to the block. The vision is bold and serves as an inspiration to guide future design processes and any policy or programmatic decisions for the public spaces in the area. 10 themes developed by the insightful comments and personal stories of the community serve as the core elements of the vision, and 10 design ideas act as physical steps that can be taken to achieve the vision. Other recommendations acknowledge the need for the community to explore additional projects and partnerships that can improve how Pack Square Plaza is managed, operated, and maintained, as well as how the space is programmed to be inclusive for all ethnicities, cultures, generations, and families. Key elements of the vision include transforming the roadways and the small median in the heart of the plaza into a larger central gathering space that can support a variety of activities, developing an underutilized and inaccessible lawn on the eastern edge into a space for reflection and connection, establishing a figurative and literal platform for new storytelling and oral history efforts, creating small commercial spaces that offer more diverse experiences along the northern edge of the plaza, and the creation of a culturally based corridor design that connects Pack Square Plaza to the block. The future for Pack Square Plaza looks bright. By working together to make this vision a reality, the community can expect to make great memories in the heart of downtown Asheville for years to come. So, just curious with that, if anyone has any reactions to the vision. Does it sound like what we were aiming for?
It sounds like the right tent poles to me, Stephanie, of everything that broadly we had talked about as anchors for what we wanted to see ourselves going toward.
I'd spend $3 million on that.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So looking back, talk about what the purpose of the plan actually was. So we asked McAdams to help the city and the county talk about issues and ideas and identify them as the issues and ideas associated with repurposing the former Vance Monument area. We asked them to look at how equity and inclusion could be advanced in Pack Square Plaza now and in the future, to provide guidance on a future design process for capital improvements to Pack Square and also include some budgetary considerations, to provide recommendations on a public-private partnership that could support future improvements to the area. And we wanted to look at ideas that better connected both the Pack Square and block corridors. So you can see just on this slide right here, a little bit of what the plan itself is going to look like. So each of the chapters is going to start with a title. For example, this is like the What We Heard section, talks about our engagement and all of that. And it includes a little bit of our logo. It's a very colorful plan and a lot of photographs and precedent images that are maybe familiar to you from other presentations. We'll share actually a little bit about what we heard and talk about those 10 themes that I mentioned. So providing that framework or serving as the core elements to the plan are these themes. There were 29 different things that the Community Advisory Committee looked at in their meeting, and some of the feedback we received was that 29 was a lot. And so they got put into these different buckets: equitable and welcoming places and spaces, being people-centered, re-envisioning the space for the Vance Monument, healing and addressing past harm, having a safe environment, being authentic and elevating our local pride, elevating, supporting, and connecting each other, telling our stories and our histories, being pedestrian friendly, and really thinking about maintenance and operations. Just another sample of the kind of vibrancies and the colors that are associated with the plan and the style and the layout. Wanted to share this picture right here to make a point and say that in essence, the Pack Square Vision Plan is positing that right now we have very little space to actually interact with each other in this plaza. And we're taking on the left a view of this small median that serves as kind of the core that's bifurcated or disconnected on either side by these streets. And ultimately, over the course of, say, 20 years, what we would like to do is really create this more intact central square. So we're not going to get there in 2 years, but we can do a series of actions that will get us there in 10 or 20. And in the meantime, actually help us hit some of those goals associated with being more inclusive and welcoming. So you can see here on the left, this is an older version of the bubble diagram that was produced after the design charrette, but you can see here that narrative put into action, which is really talking about a space for reflection, that meditation grove that's over on the eastern edge of the plaza. There's where it says tent and vendor space. Those are really going to be more like kiosks and more permanent small business spaces that can help us diversify what we can offer people. And while we're not calling that area the free speech zone anymore, we're talking about really highlighting how civic engagement was underscored by our community throughout the process, the focus groups and the different the walks that we took, that people did not want to see that be dismissed. So we need to have some unprogrammed space as well as space in the center that could be more flexible and could be used for different amenities that are either built out or changed seasonally and attract a variety of different types of people into our downtown. One of our really simple design issues is to say that there is a crosswalk right now that connects people from in front of the Hotel Eris to Pack Square, but that it is not lined up with the streets in a logical manner, and that for safety purposes, we want to move that crosswalk up to where it's more visible and people are connected directly into the park. We do have information on the removal of the Vance Monument as far as what the community wants to see, and that is that when we are told we can remove it, to go ahead and get it out of there. But we also heard very clearly that it does not need to be replaced with another memorial or a marker. And in fact, the area should be reserved as a space that is not divisive. We should focus our efforts of telling our stories and exploring history in other ways, which I'll talk about at the end of this, because we do have money through the Mellon Grant to do those types of things. We heard a lot about activating that northern edge. There were 2 options for this. On the top right, you'll see a photograph with precedent images that show, if the Biltmore company decided to actually change the facade of their building, how they could create storefronts on that ground floor. And then underneath that, you see an option where we could just back up that lawn and build some kiosks. And we have talked to folks at the Biltmore company, and they're very interested in the option on the bottom right and activating that space. So we'll be having those conversations with them very soon. This is the idea around healing and reflection. While it says, reposition the elevated lawn to create a meditation grove, in the plan, it also discusses as a possible center or place for an opportunity to name this area in honor of Black individuals, Black history, and really put a stake in the ground somewhere in this plaza that shows that we have put our Black community in the front, and we have thought about what inclusion looks like in physical space in the plaza itself. The 2 streets that are in Pack Square, we have 2 separate recommendations. The first one is to close North Pack Square to vehicular traffic. This was a comment that we received very early on as a result of the Vance Monument Task Force report. And everyone has echoed it. So it is something that is also amenable to the Biltmore company, and we will try some tactical options, some temporary options for this as we move forward with the design process to make that permanent in the future. We already know what that looks like when we have festivals and special events. Very, very long term from now, the idea would be to convert traffic behind the Biltmore building to two-way traffic. So as you know, on the east side of College Street, that is two-way traffic, and then everything just west of Market Street turns into one-way traffic moving west. If we were able to two-way traffic on College Street in this area, we would be able to reroute transit buses and public safety vehicles so that South Pack Square is no longer required to be open on a regular basis. So this is a critical piece for us to be able to long-term achieve that vision of having an intact central square. There's a lot of information in the plan about creating a cultural corridor along South Market Street, stretching from the intersection of Pack Square and Pack Square Park into the block itself. These are further drawings that show what that might look like. And also this drawing or this diagram talks about how very long-term, if we were able to reprogram some of the spaces in the area into public spaces, we would be able to further some of the goals of creating new places for festivals and special events in the block. More diagrams. This is showing on the right-hand side how we could extend the sidewalks and remove some of the parking along South Market Street so that looking down at the YMI, it was more visible, and we'd also have spaces for pop-up festivals, special events, storytelling, that type of cultural activity that could happen in that corridor, really connect people to the space. You have a potential for a mural that could be very easily done with fabric on the parking deck that is on the west side of South Market Street. And some ideas to further create more of a gateway that speaks to the past, present, and future of this multicultural district. Also on Eagle Street, there's a potential to improve that gateway that we worked on as part of the Celebrating African Americans Through Public Art initiative. And as I mentioned, there is a discussion around the long-term use of the municipal building. While the city is really invested in using this for public safety now, and we know that that's a critical function in our downtown, if there are opportunities in the future to redevelop other city or county properties nearby to create high quality facilities, and all of that was able to be accomplished in a fiscally sustainable manner, part or all of the municipal building could be reimagined as a cultural center, a history museum, or even be returned partially to its original shared uses that include public markets spaces. In addition to all of those design considerations, there's some things that we need to be digging in and as a Public Art and Cultural Commission team moving forward. Assessing elements in the plaza to be relocated is an acknowledgement that we have a lot of disparate historical markers, pieces of the urban trail, honorariums for people who donated to different efforts of revitalization over time, and they do not tell a cohesive story, and they also do not necessarily provide enough space for all of the histories and cultural expressions of a more diverse community to be told. So performing that inventory or audit is a first step. And this commission has already started that process last year to really walk around and take a look at what is on the ground right now. Another piece of this is a recommendation for the city to participate in the process to create a municipal service district or business improvement district. And the idea behind this is spurred on by our request to ask them to think about public-private partnerships in the area. Most people who participated in the process understood that in order to program and operate a public space of the level that our community is looking for, the city cannot do it alone. Partnerships with other local governments and with not-for-profits and private entities would be required. Part of that partnership could even be to look at allowing other organizations to program the area. So what I want to end with is a discussion about what our review process is from here, and then also talk a little bit about the Mellon Foundation grant. But before I do that, I wanted to see if anyone just has some questions about what they saw highlights in the plan.
Question, Stephanie, when you look at the idea of it being multi-year, what falls within realistic achievability in the short term, both politically and financially? What do you see the steps that we could take as we start to build this out?
Well, all of those other recommendations that I had at the very end are recommendations that the community can be involved with. That's those audits of the historical markers and the monuments, and thinking about where things potentially could go in the future. That is something that we could start on right away as a team. And it is going to be critical that we do that as we move towards an actual design process. So this is just a concept and a vision, and it's a pretty darn good one. But what we need to do next is actually build out construction drawings. And that means we would need to be way more refined. And we have the money to do it, right? We have the money to do it through the Mellon Grant. So that is one of the areas that we could make a lot of differences. We can also look at doing some tactical things in the spaces, just getting movable chairs and places for people to have, maybe some tables, and being able to shut down North Pack Square, not just for a festival, but for people to be able to enjoy. That would be something we haven't done before. Andrew.
I really love the effort toward connecting with the block. But I will say, that block that is one way right there, I fully believe that we're not going to be able to accomplish all our goals until we get that to be two-way traffic, because it's all of Market Street is two-way except for that one block that connects Pack Square to the southern area there. And so I hope that that's being considered. I know that's part of the long-term vision of it, but I truly hope that is that restoring that to two-way traffic is at least in the hopper for future design and consideration.
For sure, it will come up in the design process. And I think that as we move forward with the community engagement with different members of the Block Collaborative, members from the East End Valley Street neighborhood, we're going to get the ideas and the input necessary for us to figure out how to move forward. Anything in there that particularly interested other people, things that you saw that you would really love to have happen?
I think for me, the block number one and what we're doing there is just such a big thing. We talked about that before, because it's one thing to kind of talk about equity. It's another thing to literally build it into our human traffic flows and connect all that and what we're doing. And the other piece I really like about it is, we talked a lot about public art versus gathering spaces. And I like the concentration on gathering. I think that's where the win is going to be at the end of the day, is giving people a place to be able to come together.
Pat.
Yeah, I guess that area is really resonating with everyone, the connectivity to the block. But I loved seeing that idea of having the the mural on the screen covering the parking lot, which I thought was pretty brilliant. So that seems like something that we could move on sooner than later.
Mhm.
Great point. Andrew.
And you know, I so much of this, when you look at it, it's like it feels so obvious. And I don't mean that to say that it didn't take a lot of work to do it. I mean that is a sign of the quality of the work that was done. And so it feels so good to see something where I like my continued reaction was, well, oh, of course, or oh, I wouldn't have thought of that, but of course. And you know, with some of the long-term visioning on this, so it really looks like the community led this, and I just want to say thanks for all the work that went into it, because it's you know, I think that we've got a real promising future for, you know, the center of our town, and this is going to be a keystone to that. So just great job.
Pete.
Yeah, I think to build on that, my earlier question wasn't around the politics of the community. I think you all have done a really good job. It's more saying, as this moves through the decision-making hierarchy, what are because to me, this thing can pick up a lot of momentum really quickly, but what kind of buy-in would you expect? And I know we're very early stages, but you understand this gauntlet better than anybody, is to what kind of appetite do you see, both from a financial spend standpoint, as well as really doing some significant changes here that are corollary to what it is that's being recommended.
Okay, this is a good segue. Let's talk about what's next, actually. We still have a sorry here. We still have a couple things to do, and getting that buy-in is a really important piece of this. So thank you for bringing it up, Pete. I want to let everybody know or remind you that we have some events next week that I hope that you can come out to, and I hope that you will repost on your social media and share. We've had a couple posts last week about this on the city's Twitter and Instagram feeds, and we'll redo it again next week. But the first one is Friday morning next week from 10 to 11 a.m. at the Public Works or Development Services building. As you might know it's where we had the design workshop for this project. Catherine Cutshaw from Buncombe County Special Collections is going to present some highlights from a book that she has put together with one of her colleagues. So she started working on a research paper to be able to better support the public engagement process last year. And it just blossomed and blossomed until it turned into a book. And so now she's able to share some of that with us, and we're able to have a dialogue about why keeping our understanding of history fresh is really important. And while our history may seem sealed in time, it really is not. The second piece of that happens just an hour later. So from noon to 3 p.m., we have a drop-in session with an interactive self-guided tour of those 10 design-based recommendations. Nick Lowe from McAdams will be here, and we'll have a bunch of different staff able to kind of talk through how things work. So if you're most interested in the two-waying of the street, or most interested in how we can support what's happening on the block, we can just sit down there and talk about it in detail. You don't have to be there from 12 to 3 o'clock, and there'll be some refreshments there, so please come on down. The next day from noon into 2 p.m. at the press room, which is downstairs in the Harris Cherokee Center, we'll have somebody upstairs, by the way, that will guide you to this. We will have Mitch Silver do a presentation, and his presentation is not just going to provide an overview of the plan, but he really is going to make that case of why now. Why do we need to reinvest in our public spaces? What's the value of public space? And in this day and age, when we have so many other things to consider, how can public space really help us as a community? And then we'll also get to be able to talk about the plan itself. We'll have staff there to do a lot of different feedback. Lastly, I'll share that as far as the plan goes, we will be having open public comment on publicinput.com, the city's engagement hub, for about a month. As part of this review process, we'll be bringing the Community Advisory Committee back together and the Downtown Commission together to provide a recommendation. So we'll be looking to try to develop some buy-in with these groups and answer their questions, let them know what the community is saying through our web portal and through these different events. Eventually, we'll be at our Planning and Economic Development Committee of City Council that's scheduled for August 14th presently, and we'll be making a presentation to City Council in September. So it's possible that we present to them on September 12th and we ask them to do some kind of action later than that date if they have a lot of questions about it, or they may feel like they're just going to accept that plan as a guiding document right at that time. Our Mellon Foundation grant, just as a reminder, is a $3 million worth of funds to support implementation of this project. And it kicks off in October. The way that looks is that we are going to be immediately getting a team on board. We'll be hiring a pretty multidisciplinary and highly skilled planning, urban design, and engineering team to take that concept and work with the community and create construction drawings out of it. These construction drawings are going to have to be able to be doled out and implemented a la carte, because we don't know what's going to happen to the Vance Monument, and we do not necessarily want that to stand in the way. We also don't have any money for construction right now, but that's okay. We will figure out how much we can put together in the next 5 years. And we will be able to, with that a la carte menu, pick the pieces that are most important to us and get them done. So that's about a 1.5 year design process. That starts with hiring in October of this year. Then at the same time, we're going to be working with members of the Block Collaborative and the East End Valley Street neighborhood to talk about the future design of a cultural corridor on the block. And that work is going to start again in October. And by March, we hope to be bringing on board several different professionals, design professionals, a community facilitator, and others that can work with a larger community through a public process to not only design that piece, but build out that corridor. So we have the money to do that piece's construction. There's a lot of community capacity building that's associated with that project. And one of the pieces that ties the two together is an initiative called Sharing Our Stories that is going to provide a good deal of funding for Buncombe County's oral history backpack program. We're going to turn it into an oral and video history program. We have money set aside to train a bunch of members from the community, maybe you, to go out and get at least 3 new stories. We're going to be hiring a story facilitator who can help us identify the stories that we haven't heard. So perhaps we actually haven't heard a lot of stories yet or recorded them about people's experience in the pandemic, for example. And we have money set aside to then create a special event around sharing our stories and involve people from the block and people from all over Buncombe County and people who are interested in Pack Square. So all of this is to say that while this has been a great experience, we're continuing to move on for the next 3 years at least. We're committed to making these things happen and seeing what we can do to bring these places to the level that you have envisioned. So buy-in. is made possible in part by members of the Public Art and Cultural Commission. I would very much like you guys to dig into the plan when it comes out. Would like to hear what you think about the plan. We don't anticipate making any like wholesale huge changes from the highlights that I provided to you, but of course there will be text edits and graphic edits and things that are egregious will come out of that plan. So you can help people know about those events, and you can help review that plan for us and then stay engaged and identify opportunities for the Public Art and Cultural Commission and different partners that you would like to work with to do some work in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. It's all very exciting. And now we have a moment here where we are going to go around the table and share announcements and any additional discussion. And then we'll have some updates on city projects after that, it looks like, and then decide on the next meeting. So yeah, around the table, who would like to start and share something?
I'll start.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
Sorry. I'm doing work with the YMI, and I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, but we're hosting hard hat tours of the building, which I know Steph has been on one, and they're really exciting, and we could organize one just for the commission if you're interested. Or I can share, we're going to be scheduling more dates open to the public, so I can also just share that invitation registration link with you that way, and you could register individually too.
That sounds awesome, Pat. I'm very excited by all the pictures that I've seen so far of the progress. ArtsAVL just announced a new town hall event that we have coming up in August today. We are going to do a town hall panel discussion and Q&A on Thomas Wolfe Auditorium. The event will take place on August 21st from 3 to 4:30. Mayor Mannheimer will be participating, so will Vic Isley from the BC TDA, as well as other panelists as we bring them on board. It will be in the arena on the temporary stage, and there will be tours of Thomas Wolfe Auditorium before and after that people can register for.
Yeah, and I had two things. That was one of them, just that, you know, as we've been talking about at ArtsAVL, this problems that they've had at the Wortham recently really opens up a strategic opportunity for us. So to really be able to kind of flood the zone, get people there, you know, be able to create some forward motion against this. I think everybody knows and agrees that this has been needed for a long time, an upgrade. And I think being able to differentiate between kind of a quick fix and strategically where are we going, much like we're talking about with Pax Square revisioning, is going to be important. So the more people we can get, the better. And then just from a personal standpoint, being a music lover, looking forward to AVL Fest. Andrew, I see that Firecracker Jazz Band is up on that lineup. We're looking forward to being able to see y'all. And just it's just amazing the amount of talent we have. I hope economically everything works out, because boy, it's just an amazing cooperation of both venues and artists that we've got that are going to be showing up for that.
Pete, you're stealing my thunder. That was what I was going to contribute. The AVL Fest is going to be the biggest citywide music event that we've had since Belshare, and Belshare ended, count it, 10 years ago. I mean, this is, while the talent is almost entirely local, that is a lot of talent. We've come out and see the amazing diversity of talent that's out there. Just please come out and support it. Or, you know, you don't even have to come out and just buy a ticket. That'd be great too. But it's going to be huge. I'll be playing the Saturday night at the Funkatorium, and I hear they have free Bud Light now. And I'll be at I think, was it 7 o'clock we go on, and so yeah, come out and find your new favorite band. There's going to be about 200 choices in different performers out there. So it's just going to be really cool, and I'm a really it's a great showcase for all the performing arts talent in our city. So, and I really hope that we can make it sustainable and get to do it every year.
Yep.
On Tuesday from 12 to 2, Delta House is renting a trolley since we've had trouble with transportation, and we renting, and we have Dwayne Barton from Hood Huggers. Our students have been studying, exploring our community through art and history. So we're going to, 33 of us are going to go to the Triangle Park downtown, look at the mirrors, learn about the history. A few will have a chance to go into the YMI Culture Center with a hard hat and see what's going on. And then we're going around to, I think it's 4 or 5 communities so they can see what's happening in different communities. And we will visit the gardens, and this students have created a model of their community. And so this is our last week of the camp. And I think it's going to be exciting. They even have a little chant and everything to go with it. So we plan to make a copy, but I think it's exciting for them to have a chance to get on the trolley and go around. I hope it's not too hot.
These are also great. I'll just throw in Craft House, Forest of the New Trees is happening in September and October on Thursdays and Fridays at Center for Craft. It's the first time they're running this hopefully annual immersive art installation and experience. So it's going to be pretty great. Katie.
Thought of one more thing.
Yeah.
On August 28th, Symphony in the Park is coming back. So that'll be a big event too.
It's a good summer and fall for the arts.
In August the 27th, East End Valley Street Heritage Festival be going on, so I guess I'll be face painting all day and crafts.
Updates on city projects. We have Jake Rusher Park.
So my understanding is that the installation at Jake Rusher Park took place and that they are, I believe, looking for another date to actually have a community-wide celebration. But if anybody gets a chance to be down in Arden, South Asheville, that area, go out to Jake Rusher Park and look at that piece. I do not have an update for Broadway Public Safety Station, except for, and I believe this was already announced, that there was a winning concept for that public art piece, and I believe it was the harp. So it looks like there'll be a interactive musical instrument right there on Broadway near our 5 Points neighborhood. And then the last piece that we wanted to discuss is Art Deco Masterpiece, one of our urban trail stations. And many of you know this update too, but to share that we've had several meetings with former donors and private property owners and artists. And we now have Alex Irvine on board, contracted to recreate a new marker for Art Deco Masterpiece. The former Art Deco Masterpiece marker, which was 7 feet tall and has been moved several times because it's just not, it's not properly sized for our public space in that area, is highly likely to go to, drum roll please, Buncombe County Special Collections and end up downtown at our library to highlight the revitalization era of our downtown. So we have met with the Urban Trail Committee, and Alex Irvine has some great ideas about creating an interactive table. So the S&W building that is being highlighted for Art Deco masterpiece is well known as being one of a important restaurant chain in the Southeast, the S&W cafeteria. And that will be a way for us to say, let's get some art out in public space that actually could be used. So we would share it with the folks at the food hall when they are in business and when they are closed for the day. Anybody can go and take a seat and take a picture and enjoy the artwork that will be right there. So we're going to be working on that for the next couple months and then be in production. We'll let you know more about it as we go on.
All right. And then it sounds like the doodle poll is going to come out about the next meeting to discuss the ordinance revision. That is the final item on the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
Do not have any public comment.
So now it's time to make a motion to close the meeting, or however you say that.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
All right. Second?
Second.
Great. All right. The meeting of the Public Art and Cultural Commission is now adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. See
Thanks.
y'all.